Welcome to the Crit House, everybody. I'm Jeff Larson, and today we have the good folks from the online photographic magazine, What Will You Remember? We have Suzanne Révy and Elin Spring here with us, and we're going to take a look at the work of Buzz Piasso. Did I pronounce that right, Buzz? I should have checked beforehand. Is it Piasso or Piasso?
Piasso.
Piasso. Excellent. Buzz, it's great to have you. So let me introduce Elin Spring. She is the founder and the editor of What Will You Remember, the online magazine of photography. She juries photo competitions such as Critical Mass and The Fence. I have not made it into Critical Mass yet. I'm still waiting for my time. She is a curator and she conducts portfolio reviews as well. Her photography writing has won an award from the Griffin Museum of Photography, the Scribe Focus Award. And she is here with her partner in crime, Suzanne Révy. Suzanne is a photographer, a writer, an educator. She has a BFA in photography from the Pratt Institute. When she was early in her career, she was a photo editor at US News and World Report and at Yankee magazine. She's now working on landscape photography. She teaches at Clark University, and she's also on the board of the PRC, the Photographic Resource Center here in Boston. So welcome, Suzanne and Elin. Buzz is in Clifton, Virginia, outside of DC, and you are an engineer by trade. Buzz, can you tell us a little bit about the photography we're going to be looking at, as well as yourself, and what you're looking for from a review as well?
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me on your show and taking the time to review my work. I'm a hobbyist photographer, and I've been taking pictures for a while. I did discover street photography in just the last year or two. It was kind of, frankly, by accident. I realized I like doing this type of thing, and then I discovered that there is an entire genre of photography associated with it. So what we're looking at here are a kind of a selection of photos from the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I try to visit many different neighborhoods, the metro, et cetera, to provide good opportunities for taking images. I'd like to obviously get any feedback on these specific images and any suggestions in terms of how to proceed with potentially next steps. What would you recommend?
Well, we have the right people to talk to you about those things. Elin, Suzanne, who wants to start with some thoughts for Buzz?
Go ahead, Elin.
I would start with a question. First of all, what did you said you came upon this by accident. What were you doing before photographically? If you were not taking street photographs, what were you doing?
It was very general. I would do nature or sporting events or even landscape a little bit. Generally just looking to find good opportunities to take interesting images. But I've found that street photography is probably best aligned with my personality.
So you were fascinated by the interaction with people? Or
well, the ability to wander around the streets and kind of observe and try to discover things that were going on that would be interesting potentially. And to some extent, interacting with people as well.
Okay. Well, I would say, and you learned about methods from online courses or reading and things like this? Or?
Well, certainly, for example, this show, there's other videos online that provide some guidance for this. I've read some books that focus on street photography. All those things have helped me at least hopefully point roughly in the correct direction. Okay.
I'm not sure I'm picking up on your direction exactly. I think that the the issue for me with all these people is they're not connecting to either you or each other. And my favorite, because there's some emotion there, is number 8. That is a human being to me. Whereas other people are either look like they're consciously ignoring you, or they seem to be aware, not this person turning away, but in number 3, 4, and 5, they seem to be aware of you, but not looking at you. So it's in this one in particular, or even that, what are you looking for? What do you see?
Well, some of the images, including this one, I was trying to kind of capture some of the, I would call it tension that's somewhat prevalent on the expressions of a lot of people on the street today. And this is street photography. It's not portraiture, so I'm not asking them to take their picture, of course. So here, obviously I was trying to get quite close to them, but really not even have them, frankly, notice that I was taking their picture.
You're this close and they're not noticing, you think?
That's correct.
Huh. Okay. So my big question about all these people is, what are you trying to see in them, or what do you want us to see in them? Because I'm not quite getting tension. Perhaps in some of your composition, where you have a dynamic composition here, that it works. The other one where I think the composition works is like 13, where you have a man walking and the poster behind him walking, except that you've cut off his feet and the dog's feet. And I think you need to watch your framing. A lot of people have their feet cut off. It doesn't, I don't know if it's intentional. 14.
Can I just jump in quickly? Because I had the same thought about the feet. Like here, I think you cut off him right at the ankle. I think it would have looked better if you'd cut him off around the thigh. I'm curious about one thing I've noticed is there are different shapes of, like, you're using different aspect ratios. So this is square. Then there are other ones. There's several vertical that have like the 3:5 aspect ratio. Are you cropping your pictures, or are you shooting with a square format camera? Or
Yes, I am cropping. Now, all the pictures are, this is certainly not a series, so it's kind of a sample of the black white pictures that I've taken around the city.
Right.
So they're certainly not all expressing that concept of tension. I think some of the ones at the beginning are more in that vein, but yeah.
I mean, I'm going to recommend one thing for you. There's a documentary about the photographer Gary Winogrand that was made a couple of years ago. And in it, a writer named Jeff Dyer, who wrote a book called The Ongoing Moment, which was a really good read if you're interested in photography. He sort of describes Gary Winogrand as paying attention to feet, and that people always look like they're dancing, So I always really appreciate that comment. I never thought about Gary Winogrand's, the figures in Gary Winogrand's street photographs as dancing until I heard Jeff Dyer say it in that documentary. So I do think, like Ellen said, the picture of the dog, the picture of the guy in the scooter, the woman between them, number 14, I just think seeing those feet would have made the picture feel more complete, so I think it's really important to, when you're shooting, to when you're shooting, to pay attention to the edges of the frame I think this one actually works. Like, I think the framing here works rather nicely. You know, there's something symmetrical going on, and I don't think you cut them off in a weird place, even though sometimes knees aren't the best, but it doesn't feel quite so violent as cutting off at an ankle, you know. So
So,
I
so
think,
Buzz, as I'm looking at it, so there with street photographers, there generally, and this is not universal, but there are two kinds of ways of shooting. There's the hunter, and then there's the fisherman. And for me, the ones that seem stronger are the ones that are probably taking the fisherman approach, where you're finding a spot and you've got an image that you are working with. You sort of like, and you're waiting for something to happen within that frame. Is that you do you work in those two different ways? I mean, it was
I do. And I'll certainly switch between those two modes as it seems appropriate at the time. You know, generally it's pretty rare to just kind of show up somewhere and something immediately happens. So a certain amount of waiting is generally required.
I
for me.
mean, this spot right here would be a great place to wait for a while. I
Absolutely.
mean, you've got this figure, you've got this painting, or maybe that was just temporary. I don't know, was an artist like selling work or something?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I you know, that would be a great place to just kind of wait if they're there, you know, again. You know, even the tag on the wall. I mean, there's the mural, but there's a little bit of graffiti as well that I think adds some interest, you know. And I think there are other things going on here, like, and again, this goes back to kind of that description of the feet. I love the hands, like this man's hands holding the leash of the dog. I mean, I think that's really expressive. And even the little bit of light glazing on his cheek, you know, I think good street photography is like jazz, you know, it's like improvisational jazz. It has a rhythm, it's got kind of, you know, a beat to it.
He's got that great stride. There's movement. Even the dog has a good
I mean,
stride to it. They're sort of
like
working
so
together.
close, but
Yep.
yeah, but the feet being cut off is just, it's just a little bit of a shame, you know. And I don't know, a slightly wider angle lens, like I don't know what kind of lens you're using, you know. Winogrand, you just used a 28, a pretty wide angle lens with a Leica, and he wasn't looking through the frame, you know, the viewfinder that much, but I think he understood the angle of view of the lens so well, because he shot so much film that he knew kind of intuitively where he could place his camera and what would be in the frame, you know, without even really looking through it. I mean, I think
Buzz,
that's
a question of practice. That's just, you know, you've been doing it for a couple of years.
That just takes time.
Time.
Yeah.
That might be a very good exercise, is going and finding things like that mural, and then setting yourself in front of it and waiting for things to happen. Or the other one with the woman walking, which number was that? No, where is she? With the sign, where is she? It was a wide shot.
That one.
14.
There we go.
That's
There.
it. Okay.
Found it.
Yeah. For example, that arrow is quite good, and I think a really interesting, good framing for that shot would have been to get her feet, take the P out, and bring it down a little so that you see her walking in one direction and the arrow pointing in the other direction, and that sets up your tension.
Yeah.
That would give you great composition. You have that great texture for a backdrop, and the compositional elements of the windows all setting off these blocks of dark and light. And I think it's good that you're working in black and white, and it will really, you know, help you with composition and framing. But I think a good direction for you to go now is to plant yourself in front of something that is an interesting backdrop like this, or the wall mural or something like that, and wait for people to walk through and have, with serendipity, you will get some excellent shots, and then you can move from there. When you have those happy accidents, they point you in the right direction.
Yeah,
I just would like to make one of, sorry.
No, go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah,
Sorry.
May I just wanted to make one other comment that I noticed about your work. I feel like there's two types of photographs that you're making.
Yes.
These close-up ones of the people, like the first three here, and it looks like you're holding the camera down, not really looking through it and looking up at them. And I know they're not portraits, but they almost function like portraits, especially the third one in this group, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that starts to almost become a portrait. I actually quite like this one. I like the light in this one, and then you have these other ones that are a little bit wider view where you're using the vertical format. I mean, this looks like a portrait, even though I don't know if you spoke with that person or not, but those closer ones that are square just feel more portrait-like, even if they were not necessarily set up, or even if you interact with that person, so I just want to point that out about what's going on. Like, I feel like there's two kind of ways of working that are pretty obvious.
You have a long lens and the background is thrown out, or you're very close, and the angles are really pronounced, like in 3, 4, 5.
And this one too.
Yeah.
On these two, this one and the one before it, the light is not so great. Like, that's one thing. I would encourage you to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going out when it's sort of midday, not great light, especially if you do want to add tension, but it's a little easier to shoot when the light is a little softer, later in the day or earlier in the morning.
Yeah,
That was one of the things that I
Maybe-
was noticing as well, is that a lot of the images, I mean, a couple of these have some sunshine in them, but many of them, as you come through it, are pretty flat light. Certainly the indoor ones obviously are, but
Yeah.
they're,
And actually, I mean, on a certain level, when it's overcast light like this, it's a little easier to make street pictures when you're not dealing with kind of really harsh sunlight.
yeah, right.
No, although I think that one can use harsh sunlight to add tension. I mean, it's I don't like it myself, but
Or composition. I would recommend that you look at the work of Alan Schaller. Scheller. Really great street photographer. His compositions are fabulous. And he does that, he sets himself up in very interesting spots and then waits for people to be in the right place. If you have a look at his work, you can see where you might go in terms of composition. And
there's certainly many opportunities in the DC area for you to do that, comfortable places with good backgrounds to be able to work with.
And I quite like the one in the metro too. I used to live in DC, so like I know that cavernous. The only thing is you cut off her phone.
Yep.
But
That's
I like
the
that she, where you're doing something we're told not to do. Like, she's kind of moving out of the frame, and I like that there's tension there. I just wish the phone weren't cut off because it pulls me out.
That's the thing that I keep thinking about as we're looking through these images. When you do set yourself up, Buzz, and you find your shot, make sure you're focusing on the edges of the frame to make sure that everything that is there is supposed to be in there, and you're not having extra things. And take things, move around so that those things that are extraneous are no longer in the frame. So try to simplify it as much as possible.
Yeah, sometimes the difference between a good picture and a great picture is like this, like,
or shoot wide and crop it afterwards.
That works
if
too.
you can't get your right position, just put more information in and take out when you get the picture back.
So Buzz, what's your response to the comments that we've been talking about? What's your takeaway? What do you think you're going to do next out of your out of this discussion?
Well, I do have a couple of questions. I'm a little confused about the cutting off of the feet comment. I understand that, you know, one doesn't want to, you know, crop at the knee generally. But I really hadn't, I guess I had heard some contrary advice from others in the past where they kind of suggest that, you know, below the knee, but maybe at the ankle-ish is not such a, is a good thing. So I'm a little
Well,
confused.
I think at the end of the day, you know, it's your work, right?
Right.
So I think it's important to listen to what people say about stuff like that, but then you have to decide, you know, is this really, you know, I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a mistake that the feet are cut off in that waiter, the one you just passed.
I'm here.
But, you know, it is, after all, your work. So I think you have to kind of take a grain of, you know, take it, everything that you hear with a little bit of a grain of salt and, you know, stick to your guns on something. You know, it is your work, right? So, but I would sort of study how Gary Winogrand includes feet and just see how that
Okay.
works. You know what I mean? Like, and just,
Okay.
just to understand like what he was doing. Because, you know, I just love the idea of the feet and the people dancing, because I think feet and hands and feet are very, very expressive in human figures. I think they're really important in street photography.
Buzz, what was your other
Okay.
question?
I don't think I had other questions per se. Yeah, for all these, I am using a pretty short lens, like a 35 or a 50.
Mhm.
So I am, you know, maybe not so much with this one, but the others, I'm generally pretty close to them. But
Are you switching lenses or are you staying just those two?
just those two
Yeah.
for street.
Mhm.
Well,
And are
it's
you printing these? How are you processing and printing them?
When I'm doing the black and white, I'm primarily using the Silver Effects Pro from DxO Labs.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm familiar with it.
well, this is it's been a really interesting conversation, Buzz, and I think there's a lot of good work here. And then to your question, no, there are no rules, but there are rules. You know, it's kind of and one of the things that's also really important is that in this conversation, you take away what is relevant to you. You know, Suzanne and Ellen have years of experience, and they're great photographers and they're great educators, but no one, you know, you can have two other people come in and they might say something that's not exactly the
Completely
same
different.
thing. Right. So
Different.
take away what is relevant to you. And I think that's one of the points of the Crit House is that, and the reason, quite frankly, we have two different reviewers is to have a discussion so that there's varying opinions. Where you go is completely up to you. So so let me just say thank you for showing your work. It's always it's hard to put your work out in front of anybody, and if it's in a room with just one person, that's hard. Putting out there to the world on YouTube is hard as well. So we thank you for your courage in making that happen. I think your work is really interesting, and it's coming along very well for only being around for a couple of years. For you viewers out there, if you are interested in joining the Crit House or showing your work with one of our expert reviewers, please visit our website, just as Buzz did, at thecrithouse.com. There's a participate page, and you can fill out some information and perhaps have your work reviewed by somebody in the future. I am going to be linking out to what I think is one of the better learning videos that I've ever seen from the B&H event space. It's called Contemporary Trends in Photography with a woman, Ellen Rafferty, Rafferty from, I think she's from Montana. She's really one of the great educators, and some of her videos on the B&H event space has been great for me. So take a look at that. And I want to thank you all, first of all, Ellen and Suzanne and Buzz for participating on the Crit House, and for all of you for watching the Crit House as well.